Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're the Bunny Hug Farmers. My name's Tyler Janin, and I'm here with my co host, Dallas Leduc. We're very excited to be back. We're having a lot of fun doing these. So, Dallas, what have you been up to lately?
Well, actually, for once, we've been actually able to haul some grain. We had a whole lot of grain contracted, and they finally said, bring it. So, of course, we go from minus 35 to plus 5, and we have about one good day of hauling, and then right into muck and mud and salty, slushy, awful roads. So, but the account says haul, so and my wife says haul, so we're hauling.
Well, you always got to keep the boss happy at home, right? Have you been stuck at all, or is there still enough frost in the ground? You're sinking, but it's still holding you up yet?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're still sinking. We're still driving on frost, but most of the trucks got four-way lockers, so you can pretty well swim with them. Then you just make a mess. But no, that we've been able to keep rolling, so that's been good. And I think we only got this time 9,000 bushels of canola to go, and then another 10 of durum and 10 of peas. So, and then but get that done, then we're going to be full blown into getting ready for spring seeding because the drills need work, and it's time to get on that job because in my part of the world, we warm up so early and so soon. She's time to go.
Yes, it's amazing what four-way lockers and good tires can do on a truck. And we're recording this right now. If anybody listening is not aware, we pre-record these like this. We're right at the beginning of March, and this episode will not be out for a couple weeks after we record it. We're trying to get a bunch built up so everybody, when they're out in the tractor seeding or haying or whenever these episodes get released, we have fresh content always coming out. For us right now, when we're recording this, spring seeding is, well, for Dallas, we're at the beginning of March. You said you start at the beginning of April, right?
Probably the 15th of April, we'll be trying to aim towards having seed in the ground. So we're still 6 weeks away from seeding, so it might be pretty well close to the date that this comes out is when we're going to start seeding.
That's 6 weeks. It's going to come quicker than we think.
Oh yeah, it's going to go fast. I look around at all the work to do. I'm like everybody else now. I'm just getting almost panic mode. I haven't cleaned any seed, no chemicals in the yard. I know the one drill's got a wing pretty well broken off of it. So it's like the panic, the screaming, the running paces, thinking, nah, I still got lots of time yet.
So you're going to brush up on your welding skills a little bit on that seed pigeon, are you?
Don't tell Vaterstad that I break them apart. They think they're indestructible.
You just got to buy one of them red machines that's built in St. Brute.
I honestly think in my terrain, even if it's built heavier, I'm still going to break it apart because none of them are designed to flex and twist. They're all designed to be worked in the flat ground at Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan. They're not designed for my area unless it's an old 5710 Borgo or a Flexicoil 5000 because everything else doesn't twist. So as soon as somebody makes an independent drill on a Flexicoil 5000 frame, I'm game, I'm in, I want one.
And that's the one thing we're about here on this podcast. I personally, in our ground, we prefer a Borgo just because of how they stand up. You said you like a Vaterstad or a Seed Hawk. And that's one thing we're about. We're about talking with people, figuring out what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Because there's no two farms that are the same.
And that's one thing we noticed, like, we're not that far apart, but we're drastically different. And if you've listened to the other podcasts with Kale and Matt Builds and Travis Hildebrandt, all of our farms are within, easily a half a day's drive. And we are all dramatically different. And that leads us into probably the first guest we're having that's not a Canadian is coming on today with us. So that makes me pretty excited because, now not only do we get another farmer to come sit down and shoot the whatever with us, we get another experienced farmer with another whole different outlook at agriculture, but still the exact same goals at the end of the day to have some money left in his pocket and some dirt under his fingernails.
Hey everybody, I'd like to introduce Tanner Millang. How you doing today, Tanner?
I'm good. You'll have to excuse me. I chugged a bottle of maple syrup to be ready for this, so I got the jitters.
That's good.
Already taking a stab at the Canadians.
Yeah. If you don't know, Tanner Millang is the Tanner Talk on TikTok, and he is, I think, the very first person I ever followed on TikTok. Tanner's content is unique and great, and his history and knowledge of big buds and a lot of antique tractors and antique tractor manufacturers is just jaw-dropping, and it's entertaining and a whole boatload of fun to watch his stuff.
Appreciate it. I always just kind of decided I was going to take the stance that sometimes it's fun to just let whatever comes in my head come out. So I'm just as surprised as everybody else at what I say.
Oh yeah, it's all good because, and then we'll dive into it a little bit here. I don't know a whole lot of family history on your farming side or how many generations you've been at it, or maybe you and your dad are the first generations.
No, I would be fourth generation farm. I farm right next to the Canadian border. I'm not so Canadian where I love maple syrup, but I do enjoy pancakes.
Like you guys go right up to the border, like you could walk across no man's land and you're in Manitoba.
I live so close, if I drank enough the night before, I could probably pee off my front porch and hit Canada.
Because actually, looking at the map, we are actually geographically not that far apart. I think I looked at one time there, we're under 200 miles as the crow flies. Like, you're damn nearly a neighbor. Careful where you aim that thing.
You're talking to Tyler, and I don't think I'm that far away from Tyler.
No, you're very close to me. You're actually closer to me than I am to Dallas. And Dallas and I are co-hosts on this show. So
But the whole point of this is just to talk about agriculture. Just like we're all sitting around the table having a beer, just, shooting the shit. Just, because, we're not sponsored. We just want to talk about agriculture and talk about some of the important things in agriculture. And just
drink beer.
And drink beer. Well, actually, I got a good old-fashioned Canadian Crush It made right here in Saskatchewan.
I'm just drinking a Busch Light like every Midwestern farmer ever.
I got some whiskey. We'll leave it at that.
There's one man of class in this joint.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Tanner, did you want to dive into your family history a little bit and how your farm came to be and how it's made it to the fourth generation?
So, I'm not huge on my own family lineage, which is kind of an oxymoron. But so my family settled here before the Dust Bowl. You can still it's kind of cool from the Dirty 30s, some of the fence lines that we farm around still are raised from all the dirt that collected during the Dust Bowl. Where my farm is currently sitting, and then one other chunk of ground we have, or homesteaded. And then I am fourth generation, behind my dad, obviously. And then I also farm with a guy, I call him my uncle, but he actually married into the family. We all three farm together. My dad is semi-retired, and I think the other guy is also getting close to that point. I've got family that are tied in directly with Steiger. I've got family that are tied in directly with Versatile. Unfortunately for me, even though I'm such a big fan of Big Bud, nobody tied in with Big Bud. I just, a couple of guys around the area had them, and I just grew up seeing them, and once I kind of got to figure out what they were, I started loving them. We are a grain farm, a strictly grain farm. My uncle got out of cows 7 or 8 years ago, and we got out roughly 6 years now. I'm going to be honest, when you first get out, you kind of miss it. But, January comes along, and it's 30 below with 20, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and you look out the window, and you go, you know what? It's a great day to be doing paperwork.
Oh, yeah, because that's... Even today, Dad couldn't make it out early, and I got the text. You got to run out there, and 141K is getting close, and and that's when we only got 11 cows, from the high, but they're Dad's edibles, so they're our pets and stuff. So we went and checked on them, and thinking the same thing. I don't think I'm gonna miss these when they're gone, but they're a great way to keep my daughter involved in agriculture because, if we don't have the next generation eyeing it up, then I'm doing and Dad's doing all this work for nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's the way our family is. My sister absolutely loves cows, and then she went to college to become an agronomist, just like I did. So I'm glad to be a bad influence on her. But yeah, she was big into it until we got out, and honestly, I miss, there's times I miss it, but for the most part, I'm really good with buying my burger in town.
So you have a degree in agriculture, or how is your agronomist education?
I have 3 degrees, and if extracurricular activities counted, I would have at least 4 or 5. So I went to a trade school in Wapton, North Dakota, NDSCS, North Dakota State College of Science, which I always thought was kind of a goofy name for a trade school, but their mascot is a wildcat. So the unofficial motto is once a wildcat, always an alcoholic, and we embodied that. I got my major in drinking and my minor in bad decisions in women. And then they gave me a degree when I left. I went 1 year for machining because I wanted to build race engines and do that sort of stuff. And then I took a year off, worked in the oil field, and decided that wasn't for me. And the opportunity came to come back to the farm, but I had to go to college. So I went back to college, and I have a degree in, I can't remember what it's called exactly, actually crop science, agronomy, that sort of thing, and then a degree in farm management.
That's why you try to push towards this 200 bushel acre wheat yield you keep running towards in all these competitions?
I nerd out for agronomy stuff. I've always kind of loved it, and I like pushing boundaries. So yeah, I do some weird things sometimes, but I enjoy it. It's kind of cool doing things and seeing what happens.
It's pretty
So
cool.
with your fertilizer, are you granular, NH3, liquid? What are you doing to push your boundaries on your wheat to try and get that 200 bushel wheat crop?
Well, I don't know. Right now, I'm currently shooting for that 130 to 140. Seems like about the ballpark of where we're at. The nice part about, I guess we kind of jumped in a little bit. I started doing the National Wheat Yield Competition 2 years ago. I didn't actually get in last year, but I am prepared to do it again this year. And I missed my first year. We had some bad weather. I had a 40 that averaged 112 across it. But, not to give away all my secrets, but I have high pH soil where I'm farming, very heavy ground.
Oh, Tanner, you can tell all the secrets. There's not enough people listening to this that you tell them all.
About the time you say that, this podcast to go viral. I know how this works.
I like your optimism, but
No, I'm pushing FOSS hard, a lot harder than most people are telling me to. And then, I'm pushing with all my wheat now. And the nice part about doing this is, so you're doing this, obviously you're trying to win the contest. Usually it's right around that 130 bushels will get you in the ballpark, depending on the year. I don't think it was quite that high last year. I'm pushing sulfur down. I'm pushing potash, which I normally don't, because our soil is pretty high in potash where we don't have to add much. But what adding potash does is it adds chloride for stem strength. So if you want, obviously to push big yields, you want it to tiller. And you also want big heads with heavy kernels. And when you do that, you need stem strength. So the chloride in the potash is what I'm after more so than the actual potassium. And then sulfur. We grow canola, so our ground is generally good on sulfur, but I'll push sulfur. And then I also like to add in a little bit of zinc. And one thing I'm doing that's probably going to make people wonder is I'm a big NH3 guy. A lot of reason is for the bulk. I can get 1,500 gallon tanks and drag them around a lot easier than I can semi-loads of urea because liquid around me isn't really, it's available, but it's not widely adapted. So I'm putting down high amounts of NH3, but I'm also spreading urea over the top because urea takes a little bit longer to become available. So the NH3 gets the seed out of the ground, gets all the stems growing, and then about the time that it hits that boot stage or flag leaf, that urea is more available and in there. So it just kind of helps spread out.
What variety of wheat are you growing?
I am growing West Red 9590 pretty much exclusively. I have toyed around with a few other varieties, but I just haven't been near as happy with them as West Red.
I don't think that's something available that we have up here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one before. The common ones in my area are Brandon, Hockley, Hodge, Wheatland. And then there's a couple guys around here growing bowls too, but if I'm not mistaken, that's an older variety.
So are you guys kind of like us? So like here in North Dakota, every state has a different land grant college, but here in North Dakota, NDSU will breed different varieties and make them available. And usually, like I said, they'll name them after towns or counties or things of that nature. Are you guys kind of the same situation there?
A little bit. I grow like an Ardale peas, and so they were kind of bred, and I think they were multiplied up near Ardale, Saskatchewan. I think that's how they got their name to it. So sort of, but I mean, I know the technology trades back and forth lots, and I know I was talking with Tony Faster the day, and his wheat variety was also a West bred variety, and it just, they must be several different varieties under that brand name, I guess, eh?
They were coming out with another one. There was 4, and I think they're coming out with another 1, possibly 2. Because my rep did tell me that I could get my hands on some. I think this coming year. I'll have to call him. But there's 4 varieties. It's 9590, 9606, 9717. Then I think there's one more. I don't think we've grown that one yet.
Okay, yeah. So that's almost like how our canola varieties work. They got a number and a few letters attached to them. I haven't seen any wheat varieties up here that are addressed like that. Like normally they got a name like Brandon, Wheatland, Hodge, Hockley.
Yeah, see, and we go both ways. So, like you can go, a farmer not very far away from me, Tim Michelson, he's buys an addict on TikTok. He grows a lot of LCS, Lima Cereal Company, Lima Grain. And like he does like Buster, and I think there's a couple other ones, but Bowles and Glen are pretty big up here. I don't like Glen. Cropland, I think, is kind of the same way. It's a couple of letters and some numbers.
Tim, you said he's Bison Addiction, right, on TikTok. He's the one that grew the little couple of plots of them black turtle beans last year? Yeah. He needs to follow me back. So, Tim, if you're listening to this, I'm Everyone Knows Dallas on TikTok. You can hit the follow back button. I won't mind.
I will ship him a message after we're done. He likes to talk too. Good guy.
I follow him. He's entertaining. He spends a lot of time up here in Canada. I think they have a cabin up someplace in Manitoba.
They do. I believe he has he's got like I think it's like a RV on a lot somewhere up there.
That's cool. So back to the wheat competition. Is that just like a state competition, or is it in the counties, or how's that judged, or all that stuff that goes by quality, obviously, probably yield.
So it's there's different categories within it. It's national, but you can also take state titles. The way it works is you sign up, and usually, like I said, if you have a Lima grain variety, or like I use West Bread, if you sign up for it, you have to put input and tell them what variety of seed you used. And then, like, say, I tell them I did West Bread 9590, and I go in there. West Bread will pay your entry fees. There's a fee to get in it after you sign up. And usually the seed company will pay it because, for obvious reasons, especially if you win, it makes them look really good. So you go on the website, fill it out. It's a national competition. There's different ways to win. Like I said, you can win the state, or they have county, and they can go off straight yield. And then among the winners of the yield, they also keep a sample, and then they will test for quality. And then whoever has the best quality will also win an award for that. But you can also win, on the flip side, you can also win by percentage of county average. Like, say your county average is, say my area is 50. So 112 was really good. So say I do 100 just for ease of math, and it's average of 50 in my county. Well, that gives me like a 100% gain over county average. And then I can win yield that way, basically by just exceeding county average.
So say you win, what do you win? Do you win cash back or just bragging rights?
Bragging rights, and then you get an expense paid trip to the Commodity Classic.
No. So is that a hard red spring wheat you're growing, or is it a white wheat?
Hard red spring wheat, yep.
And in case you're wondering, I didn't make it to Commodity Classics, obviously, but next year, I believe in late February, San Antonio, Texas. So Tanner, I plan on going, so you may as well win a trip and join me.
Yeah, I plan on West Bread paying my way there if I can do anything about it. We'll see.
And if you win and I'm going, maybe we'll even take Tyler too.
I'll have to ask the wife.
Tell her you're going to greener pastures, and you're not even kidding. It's still green down there.
Oh yeah, all the time. So is anybody
just get in the trouble going down there?
No, I'll get in the trouble. He'll get me out of jail. So anybody else in your county or area in them competitions, or you're kind of trend setting there?
Kind of trend setting, actually. But no, there's a guy, he'd be in between me and Tim. I don't know him personally, but his name is Brad Disrude. He actually was the guy who won national. He'd be about 30, 40 miles away from me, not that far away from Tim. He won the national the first year I did it. I think it was like 129.97 bushels. But other than that, I don't really know anybody. There was one gal outside of Bottineau that did it, and I think she got state honors with I think she was like a 91 something with I don't even remember what kind of wheat it was. So it's getting to be more, and like I said, what I like about it is you go down there, they also do the same thing with corn and soybeans, but the wheat, you still got, you have guys like me that want to win it, but it's still, you're not just growing a little patch and tending to it like it's your baby. You're growing a field and then picking your best spot and entering that into the competition.
So is there a certain amount of acres you got to have for it, or is it 1 acre?
It is 1.5 acres or better. So, obviously you're going to get as close to 1.5. And then to enter in, you sign up, and then you have to have your seed dealer. Don't quote me on this because I don't have it in front of me. But you have to have, when you combine it, you have to have your seed dealer, and I don't think a rep has to be there, but it'd be your seed dealer and like 2 other third-party people that aren't included with selling seed or agronomy. So like you can have your county agent or the FFA teacher or somebody like that come, and you cut out the spot you want, and then everybody measures it, takes measurements, and agrees on it. And and like I said, this is why there's extra people. And then you combine it, and somebody rides with you when you combine it. You put it in a truck. One of them rides with you. You take it to the elevator, get your certified scale ticket from the elevator, dump it, just like you would normally. And then when you dump it, they'll take a sample. And I don't know how big it is, maybe like a Ziploc baggie. And like I said, somebody who's done it is probably going to watch this and tell me I'm wrong. And that's fair. And then they'll send that sample in for quality testing. And then you base your yield on your elevator scale ticket, and then the area that you've met.
And obviously this has to be dry land. You can't be irrigating on that or nothing like that.
There's two categories. There is dry land and there is irrigated. But yes, I would be dry land in my area.
No irrigation around there?
There's some, but I don't know if it's a lot of it. It's not common.
There's no irrigation in my area, just because if there was irrigation, it would pack the dirt like concrete. Is your dirt much the same way?
Yes, there is some if you get down around like the roulette area, but they're a lot lighter dirt. They're sand.
Yeah, I would say more closer to Winnipeg, correct?
Well,
yeah,
no, that would be...
Yeah, that makes sense. There's lots of irrigation over towards Winnipeg from where I am.
And like I said, there's a few pivots, but it's very, very light ground over that way.
Okay, so shifting gears here a little bit, getting away from growing massive wheat yields, you said that you're fairly knowledgeable in big buds. So what drew you to the big buds to have such a great interest in them, and not owning one, but loving them?
Yeah, I know entirely too much for somebody who doesn't own one yet. It's coming eventually, I hope. So basically, we've never owned one on our farm ever, but we were in enough of the prairie area where they were around, not common, but around. Actually, growing up, a lot of people referred to them as white tombstones because a lot of big bud tractors bankrupted farms in the 80s. But there was a guy around me by the name of Mark Glintz. And like I said, this is all hearsay, I don't know for certain, but he was trying to get a seeding record. And he had, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 buds. He had Mama Bud, Papa Bud, and Baby Bud. And I think the Baby Bud was a 525.50. And then they went up to 700 some. And then he was actually the same guy that those of you who know Big Bud, he built the 950.50 that's now down in Texas. But I don't think he ever technically completed it. He sold it back to Ron Harmon, and Ron Harmon figured it out because what the problem they were having is they took the axles out and they put 100,000 pound axles in it. And I think they did transmission, and then they put a big QSK Cummins in it. And they were having problems. I can't remember if it was with the driveline or the transmission, but they couldn't keep it together.
Well, that's a ridiculous amount of horsepower you're trying to stick to the ground. I'm amazed that anytime you start breaking that 700 horsepower, you can hold anything together. But yeah, that's a lot of power.
They probably said the same thing in the late 70s, early 80s when Big Bud came out, because you got to hand it to them, because 500 horse back then was an astronomical amount. When you're talking a lot of 250 to maybe 300 horsepower tractors. So they were really trendsetters. 525 horse would have been just astronomically large.
Well, then you have to look at, at that time, if your big tractor was 250, 300 horse, your 500 horsepower tractor had almost nothing to pull. And I know over there at Frigstead Manufacturing in Shaunavon, they built some big cultivators just specifically for the guys, and they were shipping them south mainly for the big buds.
And they pulled them right past Versatile's plant, and Versatile didn't have anything that would pull them at the time.
So maybe the reason that Versatile come up with Big Roy, which is just that's on my bucket list tractors to see in the old Versatile Museum in Austin there. You've seen it, Tyler, that Big Roy, that...
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times. When they just recently restored it here, probably about 5 years ago now, and they had it at the Manitoba Egg Days in Brandon. I seen it when it was freshly restored, and
yep.
It was quite something. They actually, in the dash, they have the old tube-style TV, and anybody's old enough to remember that, where there's that giant box on the back of your TV. there was nobody but one guy that was like 90 years old in Manitoba. They tracked this guy down, and I'm pretty sure he was on the verge of retirement, if not retired, and just happened to have enough pieces laying around to rebuild this TV that sits in the dash so you can see the implement behind you. Because if anybody doesn't know what Big Roy is, it's an 8-wheel drive articulated tractor, and the engine is behind the cab. And so you can't really see the implement behind you unless the wings are sticking way out. I would have thought it would have been really interesting to see if tractors went that way. But there was only ever one built, and it never did come into production, I guess. But it is an interesting piece to Boston there when they have their Thresherman's reunion.
Fun fact, there was 3 built.
There was 3 of them built.
1 complete.
This breaking news. We need that ding, 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 breaking news. There was 3 big boys built. 1 completed.
There was 1 about 70% and 1 frame that they scrapped when they got rid of the idea. The reason why it never went into production and they never sold it was the design is it's, for those of you who don't know, he said it's 8-wheel drive on 4 axles. So it had 30.5, 32 tires all in a line. So the front half had 2 axles and the back half had 2 axles, all driven. And it was a great design. It pulled like crazy. The only thing that they could actually pull it down with was one of the Frigsteads that they were taking to put behind a Big Bud. They actually ended up, Versatile tried to build their own cultivator, and they kept breaking it. So finally they bought a Frigstead, and they could actually pull it down with that. But the problem is that configuration was far too much compaction, so it never actually went into production for that reason.
Well, and part of the thing, one of the old boys that helped restore it, he told me, yeah, you need about 10 headlands to be able to turn this thing around at the end of the field. Because the turning radius on it was atrocious, apparently.
And I often thought, with that being so long and narrow, maybe that was aimed towards like a European market where they have such width, they have to be in certain dimensions and width, where your standard, double or triple tractor was just going to be too wide. I was just guessing at that, but I can always have my guesses.
It was aimed towards Steiger and Big Bud were absolutely obliterating Versatile. And at the time, Versatile had like 70% of the four-wheel drive market. So they were night and day over everybody. But Versatile's claim to fame, I guess I wouldn't say it's that they're not a good tractor, because they definitely are. But they're cheap, no-frills horsepower. They weren't adding in anything extra. I mean, you got an articulating frame, a motor, a transmission, axles, and if you ordered the right version, you even got air conditioning. But they were just cheap, no frills, and that's why they had the market. A smaller farmer could go out and buy a brand new four-wheel drive Versatile tractor for a very, very reasonable price. And basically what happened was Steiger started playing with the Steiger Tigers and getting into that 450, 500 horsepower market to compete with Bud. And obviously Bud, they had a few small frames, but most of them were that 5 to 650 horse, other than obviously the 747. So when they designed Big Roy, CEO, it's been a while since I've looked into the story. One of the guys in charge decided that Versatile needed to play in that park, and he actually designed a whole team. Just basically gave them a KTA 1150 and told them build a tractor, and that's what they came up with.
Which obviously is one of the most unique tractor designs. I'm glad one of them 3 did survive, and it's managed to kick around. With restoration and stuff, that tractor should last, thousands, hundreds of years for sure, if we keep going that far, and agriculture will always continue. So it's just neat to have such a big piece of our past and Canadian past where, that's Versatile is a, tried and honored Canadian tradition of tractors, where your Steiger, that's your North Dakota tractors, and then you go down Montana, that's Big Bud country. So at least we have one claim to fame. And, well, I'm lucky here in Saskatchewan. We had Frigstead, which turned into Flexicoil, which turned into Case, which turned into New Holland. And I have no idea what it is now.
CNH.
CNH? Yeah. It does make me laugh, though. I'll be going up to Saskatoon, and that CNH plant up there is still producing planters like crazy. And basically every time you drive between Regina and Saskatoon, on number 11 going south, there's always a truck hauling a planter, which there is hardly any planters in Saskatchewan, but we make them and we ship them south.
Canadians know better than those corn and bean farmers in the United States, apparently.
And that's part of the reason that Tyler and we talked about this podcast is there's some amazing podcast guys and amazing content creators down in the States. But they talk mainly solely about corn and beans and row crop and not a lot of and we all enjoy listening to their content, and they're great guys and great creators, but it doesn't apply to us up here. And so we got thinking, well, let's make one that we talk about, like Tyler and I grow our crops, you grow your crops, but our crops, I mean, you touch the Canadian border. You can't be any more Canadian without actually voting for Trudeau.
Wow, let's calm down. Let's calm down here.
That was a swear word.
On the next episode of the Bunny Hug Farmers. Hi, my name's Tyler Janin. I kicked Dallas off the podcast.
I've yet to find anybody that ever voted for Trudeau, west of Winnipeg. I don't think it happens.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But that's as deep as we go into politics, folks. And now back to Big Bud. So have you been to the plant there, Tanner?
The Big Bud?
Yeah.
Yes, I have not visited. So I've been to... So Big Bud bankrupted in the 80s. And it actually is probably one of the few companies that didn't go bankrupt because of the farm crisis in the 80s. Big Bud went bankrupt because of twin disc transmissions. They ended up... Big Bud was building tractors left and right, really in their stride. And then twin discs stopped delivering. They were delivering subpar transmissions. And then they stopped delivering transmissions. So Ron had went and taken out an operating note from a bank somewhere, high interest. And then he had all these tractors built waiting on transmissions. And twin disc never delivered. And by the time that they finally did start delivering, a lot of the farmers that had ordered these tractors had backed out, causing bankruptcy. He did try to sue him, but it didn't work. So after that, Ron went through that. Then he worked for the case dealer for many years. And then he started moonlighting, selling equipment, maybe redoing a few buds. And eventually that turned into a big equipment company in Havre, Montana. And where he's still at. And I have been there. I've sat down and talked with Ron. I've sat down and talked with the salesman, some of the people. Great place. If you ever get a chance to do it and they're not busy and he has the time, very informative. Really, really cool to sit down with a guy like that. Probably one of my... they're still rebuilding and redoing them. Actually, if you look on Tractor House right now, the only place selling big buds is Big Equipment in Havre, Montana. They're buying them. I think Ron's got probably 10 430s full frame buds in his salvage yard, scrap yard that he plans to redo eventually. Just hasn't gotten around to because the market isn't there. And now they started building the new one. I have not seen the shop where they're building the new one, and I haven't seen the new one in person, but I did get a couple of invites to see it after they finally got all the kinks worked out and start actually producing them.
So you're hopefully first in line for the the all season long demo of one of those. It would look pretty awesome, hooked to the old Concorde back there.
I am first in line to get a brand shiny new one ready for its fourth owner in about 20 years.
I got a combine I demoed last fall that I want some of the next 3 owners to take really good care of for me also.
I'm not gonna lie, that is probably the most true thing. I really hope that the next 3 guys that own this really take care of it, because when it gets to me, it better be mint.
So is that something Big Bud is going to aim for coming back into the tractor market with a new tractor after being away for so many years? Are they going to price it competitively, or is it going to be priced much the same as, say, the 715 Steiger or the new 803 Deer?
I don't know if I can state the number. Well, if nobody's watching this, I will state it because I'm excited about it. It'll be... and I'm not going to state exact numbers, because obviously that changes. They're on their 3rd iteration of it now. But you'll be able to order 2 options. You'll be able to order a Big Bud, or you'll be able to order a Big Bud with PTO, and you can choose your tire size. And they'll be in that $800,000 mark. And I want to say like a 715 case quad or an 830 4-track Deer. You're looking at that 1.2, 1.3 million. So they're going to be very competitive. And personally, for me, they're going to be built almost, they're kind of a cross between Series 3 Big Buds, which would be the ones that everybody knows because they made the most of them. Like Welkers have their 650. And then the Series 4 Buds, which is what this prototype looked like to begin with. So they're kind of taking kind of the best designs out of all of the series and kind of meshing them together. And I think I can justify that money, at least personally. I can justify that money a lot more than I could justify $1.3 million for, say, an 830 horse John Deere quad, just simply because in 20 years that big bud is still going to be trigger dirt.
Oh yeah, and you know, I know they're sticking to the fact of putting metal. We're just need to put metal. You know, we're not going to put a bunch of plastic on it and then bolt on a bunch of weights. You may as well have metal fenders and designed heavy, extra heavy, because last thing I want to build them is light, and then just hang weights on them to stick them to the ground. And oh yeah.
One of Bud's philosophies has always been that you don't need to add weights because they put the weight right in the frame where it belongs, so you can put it down to the ground a lot better. They hold right around that 100 pounds per horsepower to get it to the ground. And like I said, there's times when, like say, the old Versatiles, the good tractors, but a little light in the loafers, you can get in the field sooner with a Versatile than you can a Bud. This new one's not going to be much of an exception because you need that weight to put the power down. But Big Bud, they were designed from the start, basically, with the intention to be able to rework and refab them and keep them current. You can change out the hydraulics, you can change out the transmissions, the motors, axles, whatever you need. Big Bud at its core has never, truthfully, honestly, been a tractor company. They've been a fab shop that sent out tractors.
That is one unique thing with Big Bud. They've kind of always been there for the farmer versus no other tractor company that's still in existence that I know of anyway has gone that direction where they're, well, we're going to make this so a farmer can look after it, and if he's capable of doing it, we'll never see this tractor back here again.
Yep. And 90% of the Big Buds that were produced until Big Bud's bankruptcy are still, if they're not able to be worked in the field, they're still usable. You know, you get into the Series 1s right after they started reworking Wagners and stuff like that. They're pretty crude. I mean, good tractors, but very crude. A lot of people don't want to actually use them, but the Series 3 and the Series 4s, there's a few, like there was one that got hit by a train and a few that have been through fires and things of that aren't usable anymore. But for the most part, they're still all going, which I think, if you want to talk about going green and caring about the environment, 45-year-old tractor is still running up and down the field.
Oh yeah, and pulling big implements. I seen a video there on there one time where they were describing on certain ones of them where the whole motor and the radiator and all that assembly was on a skid unit. You opened up the hood, undid half a dozen wiring harnesses and a drive line and a fuel line and a few other lines, and you just drag the skid right out the front, and you could have a brand new skid power plant and slide her back in. You could repower your Big Bud in probably an afternoon.
And the new ones are being built the same way. They're going back to basically the same skid style as what was in the Series 2. If you look down the front of this new Bud, basically you can see the rear axle. It's wide open underneath the cab for this skid. So theoretically, like if you have a motor out and they get where there's dealers or somebody that's big into Bud, you could haul the tractor into their shop. They could unbolt all the lines, slide it out, slide the new one in, hook everything back up, and you could drive it back onto the trailer, haul it to wherever you're going, and start using it again.
And that could be an option for some of the, as agriculture grows, some larger farms. If you're running half a dozen or a dozen new big buds, maybe you'd have a spare tractor, or maybe you just have a spare bullet sitting in the corner, just ready to slap in a new motor, because stuff happens fast. And Tanner, you said family involved with the Versatile and Steiger. I myself have seen video or an article written on that two-wheel drive Steiger. I know nothing besides what I read there, but I think you know way more about this, don't you?
Yes. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite corporate stories out of all of them. So this was back in the early 80s. Steiger was just coming out. Can't help but notice Dallas calls it Steiger. Just throwing that out there.
Steiger.
So back in the early days, Versatile was redesigning their four-wheel drives to the 1000 series, and John Deere was coming out with, I believe it was the 30 or 40 series. I don't remember now. So Steiger was going from their older style to the new style, which is actually pretty much the same style as what Case is selling now. But they were running into some hiccups, and they just couldn't get it right when they weren't happy. And back in those days, we didn't have social media and things of that nature. So a lot of times, if you hit the market first, you were going to get the sales. The guys who were looking for a tractor, looking for the newest and best, if you hit the market first, they were going to buy from you. And Steiger knew this. Well, John Deere was coming up with these new tractors, and John Deere had a release date that was before Steiger was going to be ready to release their new tractors. So they got a couple of engineers up in the office. Says, we need to do something about this. So they went down on the floor, on the shop, on the factory at Steiger, and they took a motor and an axle and told them to build a tractor and a frame. So they built, I think they called them the Jaguars, if I remember correctly. They built multiple, one for sure, I believe it was multiple. There's nothing special about them. They just took a front axle that they could get somewhere, took a hood and revamped it, took a cab, and they just made this Frankenstein conglomeration of a tractor. If you look it up on Google, there's a few pictures of it. You know, it's an acquired taste. It wasn't meant to look good. It wasn't even meant to work good. It just had to work. And they rushed it within a few weeks. So they loaded these two-wheel drive tractors, and they took them down to Waterloo, Iowa. And there was a few customers they had from some of their dealers that were right on the main road of where some of the John Deere executives drove going to work. And what they did is they hooked cultivators or seeders or whatever they did to them and talked to these farmers that were customers of theirs and rented their fields right along these main roads. And every morning, they would be out there working these fields. And then every night after 5 o'clock, they would be out there working these fields. So when these CEOs and these people in John Deere were driving by, they would see these. And what it did, it was absolute genius espionage. John Deere got so scared seeing these two-wheel drive Steiger tractors. They were so worried that if Steiger had time to be developing big, high-horse two-wheel drive tractors, John Deere was behind. They scrapped their release date and went back to refining these tractors because they were worried that they were going to be so far behind, which then gave Steiger time to come out with their new tractors, and then the Jaguars eventually ended up getting scrapped, I believe. Like I said, they were never meant for production. There was no, they were prototypes technically, but they were never meant for production. Very few of them made. I believe they got scrapped afterwards. The entire purpose of these two-wheel drive tractors was just to do exactly what they did, and when it worked, Steiger got out first, Steiger got the sales, and it pushed them along until the 80s eventually got them. But it's so genius.
I've seen pictures of them, and for me, there's a Saskatchewan boy here. I reference that to them two big Honeybee tractors that the Greg and whatever his brother at Honeybee Manufacturing at Frontier built years ago with massive, and they actually restored one. I think they still have them both. That's great thing is
I think they've restored them both, actually.
Oh,
I've seen them at Farm Progress before.
They might have restored them. I know one was still on the farm. The first one they restored, that was at Honeybee headquarters is that in Saskatchewan?
Yep, Frontier.
Yep.
Yep.
So just butt in here, the Honeybee Test Farm, it's been sold now and it's changed hands a few times. It's just a regular farm now. But it is only about 15 miles away from where I live. My best friend lived right next door to that Honeybee farm, and he can remember when they'd be out with those two-wheel drive Honeybee tractors farming away.
That's up by Mooseman, okay.
Yeah, it's right by me. It'd be more closer to Kelso is where it was at one time.
Because I still have my Honeybee header. I've ran to Frontier several times for parts, and someday I should do a tour. Or if Greg Honey or any of the Honeybee owners there want to come on this podcast, we're looking for more guests all the time. Shameless plug.
I believe Greg Honey is still farming because I believe he's running an X9 now, and Honeybee built him, I believe, is a 50 or 60 foot header for the front of it. So I believe he's still going. There's a guy who follows me on TikTok. It's Jake Nelson. K. Nelson. I'm not sorry if he's listening and I butchered his voice. He works for him.
Okay.
Seems like a really great guy. I should reach out to him and tell him that you guys want to meet his boss.
Well,
actually, I kind of boss, but
Honeybee itself is, I know so little of that history besides what I've just seen on the few videos. It is just a marvelous story in itself, to how they can come from designing swathers to building a couple of them tractors just to, say they can produce a tractor, then into, all the straight cut headers. And for quite a few years, especially on the swather side, on the SP swather side, dominating the swather market, and then, updating to the Airflex and then the NXT Airflex, which I had the honor of running one couple years ago, which is a marvelous header. The MacDon is a little better for my short crop terrain, but man, if I had taller crop and I wanted to shave the ground, that's what I want.
But really, if you want to get into that, MacDon is another one, a Canadian company. Really impressive where they're at and how far they've got there, because I do believe they are building John Deere sucker belt swathers, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a MacDon that's rebranded.
Yeah,
Is all it is.
just
They just got green paint.
typical
on it.
John Deere things, you know.
And I think both the MacDon side and the John Deere side, if it's branded as a MacDon, I think it's all John Deere guidance and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
I think
and
they're built in Manitoba, are they not, or is it an Alberta thing?
Oh,
I think
Winnipeg.
it's Winnipeg.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
For
We also
sure.
got Degelman, which is an amazing company to work with.
We are pretty fortunate out here in Western Canada for our manufacturers. I mean, Saskatoon's got C&H, which is the old Flexicoil. You know, Regina has Degelman and Seedmaster. You go out towards your place a little bit, Tyler. You know, Vaterstad's out there.
Yeah, they're right at Kennedy there, which is probably about an hour drive from me.
Yeah. You keep going to Winnipeg, then you got Versatile and MacDon. You come back over here, Frontier, you got Honeybee. You know, Swift Current has, was it AGI there now?
Yeah.
Used to be Batco.
We're at St. Brute, we got Borgo. Is Dobker not in St. Brute as well?
It's somewhere out there, yep.
It's somewhere out there, and then over by Winkler, there's Load King.
Yep.
So they might be Steinbach too.
And most of them companies all go back to agriculture, manufacturing, just trying to make something better, something heavier. You know, then I almost feel bad I left out Mandanko. I mean, they make excellent land rollers. And I know that very personally, that their land rollers are, in my mind, the big capital. They are number one. Like, they are the best. You know,
They're just
again,
not very good snow rollers.
well, it rolled snow good, but I almost rolled it too good. I actually think there was less snow on that come the end of the winter. I think it actually, more snow blew off that than what stayed on there because it made it so glassy, shiny. I think it just blew off that faster.
Do you think
What?
that was something to do with that you knocked all your standing stubble over? That they didn't catch the snow the same?
That could have. And there's so many variables. I was rolling snow 15 below on fairly fresh, fluffy snow on pea stubble, so it didn't have much to begin with. But it gets too hot, and I was afraid it'd stick to the roller. But I honestly, that made that world's most famous 9280 struggle pulling that 112-foot roller in the snow. Like, it was that's more roller than that tractor ever wanted.
That is a lot of roller, just in general.
Yeah. And I'm pretty honored that Mandanko asked me if I can put a few acres on that and test it out. I think that's an honor for me and our farm, to knowing that we're going to test the living bejeebus out of that thing. And, you know, if it can stand up out here, it'll last any place.
Take it and give it the cowboy treatment.
Well, if I could get Nick, we have a plan. I told Nick he hauled that 50-20 over here, and I might have to give him a push start, but I'm sure that 50-20 could pull that roller down a flat field.
Downhill?
Downhill, maybe. Well, once a roller is in momentum on flat, it doesn't take a lot. But when you're trying to compress snow with it, it took a lot.
If we get that hook to Nick's tractor, we won't turn. There's no turning.
And that's where I was. Everybody asked me, how'd that thing turn? But I do 95% of the spraying on this farm with a 120-foot case 4440 sprayer. So the turn is almost the exact same radius as what I was used to doing with the sprayer. So for me, it was just an ordinary turn. I have a hard time turning something smaller than that, is what I found.
Yeah, that's one thing I agree with you on, Dallas. Like, talking about a sprayer, it's easier to turn a sprayer around at the end of the field than it is, say, a cultivator or an air drill. You just kind of look over your shoulder. Okay, well, that's my point. I'm just going to pivot on that, and away I go again. Click the button, beep, beep. Away I go.
Yeah, back to TikToking.
You can tell you guys don't have trees. That must be nice.
Oh, we have trees and sloughs and rivers and mainly rock piles. But you guys got a lot of natural trees over there?
Oh yes, we farm a couple quarters where they're really 80s, just really odd shaped 80s.
And that's one thing I find neat talking with you, Tanner, is, you know, things of 40, things in 80. We don't have them references around this place. How about you, Tyler?
I don't even know what he's talking about, to be honest.
I put enough together to assume that a 160-acre quarter is a quarter, and if it's an 80, he's only getting 80 cultivated acres out of that quarter. So 80 acres are trees, and 80 acres are cultivated land, is how I interpret that.
Well, I tell you what, I went to college in the Red River Valley, and the first thing I said after I graduated college is, in my next life, I'm going to farm down there, because they have nice, square, flat quarters. in half sections. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, if you missed your turn, you just go a mile and circle back. You can do that. You can't do that around.
Yeah, that would be one of our, it's one of our old guests on an episode we haven't released yet, but Matt James farms up there right by Winnipeg, actually inside the Winnipeg boundaries. And that's what they're flat, beautiful, heavy dirt that, you only rise and fall, what do you say, 7 feet from one end of the quarter to the other end. I mean, just enough slope so your water doesn't pool. Like, just marvelous land.
That is what farmers have wet dreams over, is exactly what he's farming.
What did he say his dollar per acre or his dollar per purchase was, Dallas? Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
It was expensive. I think it was like around $7,000 an acre or something. I should go back and look, but
I couldn't justify that. That's a lot of money. I thought that was bad.
Yeah, well, you have to remember this is a Charles buck here, so it's worth about half of yours.
Yeah, it's probably less than what I have to pay. You guys' dollar is worth about 12 cents. So
I think we're right close to that 70 cents.
Yes,
70
it is.
cents Canadian gets you $1 American.
I went up to Canada for parts the other day, and I exchanged a $100 bill of bald eagle money at the bank, and they gave me 146 maple syrup dollars back.
That's pretty good exchange.
I don't know how you guys can afford to live here. I thought I was rich. I'm going to start moving some money up into Canada.
And that's Dallas Leduc in Glentour, Saskatchewan. Do you need my routing number, or how do you want to send me that money?
I'll submit $100 and make you a millionaire at this rate.
And that is something neat. Like, across the border, I've gone down to Glasgow for parts. I've ran and got stuff for Tony Fast up here before because, sometimes he can't catch the border, and I've Saskatoon for stuff. And it's how we trade, so freely in agriculture. I mean, if Assiniboia doesn't have the parts, they can look over, oh, but Glasgow does. Well, I guess we're going to Glasgow. Because for me, where I live, if I make a circle around where I live, my nearest McDonald's is in Glasgow, Montana.
You're not missing much.
Well, but for me, where I come from, a population of 55, 60 in town here. Nice. Makes me jealous. You go down to Glasgow, well, it's a decent-sized city. There's a whole different stories. I know they say it's in the middle of nowhere, but for me, you get to Glasgow, you actually get someplace.
Growing up, for me, that was Minot. If you went to Minot, you were really somewhere. Now that you get older, you're like, I don't want to go to Minot.
And that's the same here. Like, you grew up where I am, you go to Assiniboia, maybe do some shopping. Well, Assiniboia people go to Moose Jaw. Moose Jaw people go to Saskatoon or Regina. Regina people go to Edmonton or Calgary. Calgary people go to Winnipeg. Or no, actually, nobody goes to Winnipeg.
Winnipeg people don't even want to be there.
It's amazing they still have a hockey team, or back having a hockey team. I just hope they find something for the guys to do. But I guess if the team always fails, most likely MacDon's hiring.
Okay, hear me out. North Dakota is not a whole lot better. We have a town name in North Dakota of Amidon. It's Amidon, but say it, Amidon. That place is so bad. They just named it. Like, can we just be over?
Oh, they got pretty lost up here in Saskatchewan. We have an elbow and an eyebrow, and they're right next to armpit and all of them ones. Like, we got some weird names up here too.
Right.
We got a town that's spelt forget, but it's pronounced forget.
Right.
And you can't go to Frontier for honeybee parts unless you go through Climax first. But that's neat, because I've brought in parts, into the States and got them, ran down and got them, and and I know the exchange does suck sometimes, but especially for you guys, I think often we go down there and stuff is cheaper. But not always. I mean, sometimes I found your groceries in the stores in Glasgow were more money than we were paying in stores right here in Glentour. Yep. So sometimes you want to go down there, and same thing when you probably come up here. If you come up here, you want something different. You want your Hawkins cheesies and your ketchup potato chips. And I go down there and I want squeezed cheese and slow gin and squirt.
Squeezed cheese?
Oh,
we
yeah.
give that to toddlers down here.
Tyler, you got a toddler, don't you? You have to get some squeezed cheese for that kid.
Maybe. If I go down, I'm kind of going for me. I'm going to get my Dots pretzels.
Yeah. No, we love those here too. We just don't like how expensive they are.
They're not cheap, that's for sure. They're kind of a delicacy in my household. They're cheese curls or whatever they call them. The wife just loves them.
They're good. The cinnamon sugar pretzels too are really good.
All right, I have a bag of them actually. I should open them up and try them. I've been waiting. I've been saving them for a special occasion. Maybe one of these podcasts will be my special occasion.
But you know what? When I said that we didn't have a sponsor and we weren't looking for a sponsor, I lied. If anybody wants to sponsor us food, we're pretty non-biased on food. So, you said Dots or Dots pretzels?
Yeah, Dot.
Sweet. So if we're looking for sponsorship when it comes to the pretzel side of this podcast, is for sure.
Food and beer is always appreciated.
Yeah. No, the Dots pretzels, they were actually made not too far away from Tanner originally. The home of Dots pretzels was actually Valva, North Dakota, but recently they were bought out by Hershey's, and I think they're in Pennsylvania now, are they not?
I believe that's right. It was a big blow to Velva. Velva's not a very big town, so it really hurt when she sold out, and then they moved production, which as soon as they announced she sold out, you knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time.
Now I hope I get my paperwork done so I can go down to the States, because, man, now I'm craving a pretzel like you wouldn't believe.
Make sure you buy more than one bag. They got about a dozen different flavors.
Yeah, I think so. They got honey mustard, regular. I think they got like a Cajun or something now. They're really good.
Yeah, no, the original is my favorite.
She's on the before spring seating is a States run, whether we run down to Glasgow or run over to Minot or down to Bismarck. A family holiday is on my list. So, hopefully before this podcast comes out, I will have done my States runs, and I will know what a Dots pretzel tastes like. So on the machinery side, thinking about this, Tanner, I know you're interested in the second world's most famous 9280, and this won't be released till way after the auction date is. Did you go look at that 9280 you messaged me about?
I did not. I got some buddies down there. I'm actually right now, I kind of put that one on the back burner. We don't need another tractor, and I want to buy a Bud, so I'm kind of holding off. I do like that one. But I'm actually right now working on buying a skid steer. I'm starting doing rock picking. I don't know if you've ever heard of TerraClear.
Oh, yeah.
I'm working with ND agronomist Corey Palm with him. He's got a drone. Well, he does agronomy, but he's got a drone business where he sprays. He does a lot of like government contract stuff for waterways and things like that, but he will do fields. And then in the fall and the spring, when he can't spray, he does his TerraClear. He flies these fields and it takes pictures. And then they've got an AI system that it submits all these pictures into the system, and they map out the rocks. And they've got this bucket that you put on a skid steer. You drive around it, tells you where all the rocks are to pick them up. So I'm buying a skid steer to work into that. Starting a little side project on it.
And skid steers are cool. I know that's something Tyler and I have talked about a few times is skid steers. We haven't done on the podcast yet, but I have a skid steer. I have a JCB Teleskid. And the worst thing about a skid steer is, the skid steer was $100,000. And before you know it, you have $50,000 in attachments. And every time you look at the Ritchie Brothers flyer, you're drooling over the next one. Whether it's a tire grabber or a rock picker or a rock bucket or all of them. And that's once you have a skid steer and you know how to run it and you have the attachments, it's just the world is your oyster, right? From feeding a bale to changing a tire to pallet forks, and most likely the most used one around our place is the receiver hitch bucket. I mean, if you want to move any trailer, anything you want to move, or put a truck in the shop, whatever, you grab that receiver hitch bucket and you shove it in the shop. That is, for us, it's the most used piece of a thing. I know Dad wasn't a big fan of it initially. The price was massive, especially on the Teleskid. But, now I think there's one payment left. We'll have less than 1,000 hours on it. And we're going to have a pretty marvelous piece of machinery to have around. And attachments out the wazoo, but every one of them has its place. I mean, and a lot of them I've built. My education is a bit of a background in production line welding, or quite a bit of production line welding, so building things is, in my mind, fun. I have more fun sometimes building something than I do using it.
Yeah, I don't know about a lot of people, but like I never grew up with money, so if I wanted to have nice stuff, I had to buy old stuff and make it nice. So I can relate to that on a spiritual level. I really can.
And neither did my family farm. As you've seen in many of my videos, we do not farm in a very productive part of the world. It's a family farm, and we've bought here and we've stayed here. But I don't go very far away, and you're into way better dirt. But I guess, for me and the generation I'm in, I'm staying here. This is home. But yeah,
you found your niche and you're good at it. Yep.
Oh yeah, and if anybody watches my video and buys land around me, they are silly. They have something wrong. But yeah, oh yeah. So that's the problem is you buy one skid steer and one attachment, and before you know it, you have a 1/4 mile of attachments lined up there.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys get the Industrious America stuff on auction. I don't know where they came from. I don't know where they produce stuff. I think it just kind of shows up out of thin air on auction sites. But yeah, I'm very afraid of buying a skid steer for that reason. I feel like my wallet will become an Industrious America's oyster because you just can't pass up a good deal on auction.
I can say this now because this podcast is 6 weeks away, and maybe by then Dad will know. But yeah, I have another bucket I got to go pick up. I bought a ice scraping attachment that goes in the front because, man, the yard here, when it started to melt, we melted fast and the snow did leave and the ice ran away. But there's that few days there where the yard just turns into a death trap skating rink. And I absolutely hate slipping and falling. I don't know how many people that do, but I really don't. So any chance I could have to rip that ice up, I am. So, sorry, Dad. There's another attachment. It's at Cousin Dexter's. I just got to go get it.
So that brings up another thing I just thought of. You guys grew up, and COVID changed this, and it's really a shame. You guys grew up, it used to be a social event if somebody had an auction in the area. Were you guys like that too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was the whole community went.
Yeah. No, I think that's where my addiction to gambling started.
Yeah. Well, it was a whole community event. It would go right down to the community hall would not sponsor the meal, put on the meal to make money for the hall or whoever. That'd be rec clubs there, the church ladies for sure.
You'd get the best burger you ever had and either a piece of cherry or a Saskatoon pie, and sometimes they even had an ice cream cone at them.
And you would come home with a pickup truck full of stuff you did not want. And something you did want, well, you were too busy yakking with the neighbor, and it sold and you weren't paying attention.
So, good story about these. Growing up, they always do, and I'm sure they do the same thing. They always have trailers with boxes and stuff, and it's usually all just, right? But I was a kid, and I was pretty young, and my grandfather left me alone. That was his first mistake. So, I'm sitting there watching this auction, and I'm barely old enough to know what's going on. So there's this guy standing by the trailer. And every time they'd say something, this guy would raise his hand. So I didn't know what was going on. So I was like, oh, cool. This is what you're supposed to do. So I started raising my hand. This is a 4 or 5 year old kid. And they were accepting my bid. Thankfully, luckily, before the auctioneer said sold, this guy had bid, was starting to get mad, couldn't figure out who was outbidding him. And my grandpa showed over and shoved my hands in my pockets. And after the auction was over, started yelling at me, told me, you never do that again. But the funniest part about this whole story is we had went there, and I think he wanted, I can't remember if it was like a tractor or like maybe it was some duals off a tractor or something that we needed, some tires maybe. He was bidding, and the auctioneer kind of had like a bobble to his voice. So he would hear this and think that somebody else bid. He ran himself up twice on the same item.
Dad and I have a story close to that. We were at an auction sale down by Killdeer, and I was there earlier. I didn't know Dad was coming. And I had seen him there, but I hadn't talked to him. And there was an old 74 Chevy half-ton. And I guess I was at one side of the truck, the auction truck there, and Dad was at the other side. And we both thought, oh man, it's an extra run-around farm truck. Seemed to run okay. I think we took a $400 truck up to about $700 or $800 before I ended up buying it. It was just Dad and I bidding on it. And the auctioneer...
I want to know what that conversation was when you rolled in the yard with it, and he says... I was just bidding on that truck.
It was within minutes of the sale when I walked up to it. And Dad's like, you buy this? Yeah. Were you bidding against me? Yeah. And that was the hottest 73 Chevy ever. But I think they made its horsepower by the amount of oil it burnt. Because it had to be a 350, 400 horsepower, 350 in there. It ran like garbage until you laid your foot into it. And then it went like stank, and then just burnt 3-4 liters of oil a day.
Keep the mosquitoes away.
It's just like a second-gen Cummins. If it's got oil outside of it, it's still got oil in it. You're good.
Yeah. That one, the day it left me, that was the last time it ever drove. I live, I guess 5 miles away from the farm. 2 miles of gravel, 3 miles of highway. And I lived in town at that time, heading home about 11:30 at night, and heading up to the highway, and I let off the gas, and the old truck just gave out, and rear end gear broke in it, and just come coasting to a stop, and I'm done. 11:30 at night, pre-cell phones. Well, she's a 2-mile walk back to the farm, and most likely on that gravel road, nobody's going to come along. Or a 3-mile walk into town on the highway. kind of weighed my options there. Do I walk to the farm? No, I'm walking to the farm. Or do I walk the town and maybe, just maybe, somebody will come along, pick me up, give me a lift to town. So I headed to town and I walked all the way to my house in town, and right when I got to the back door to go in the house, somebody come from the west, and I was just almost spitting fire bad. I had walked all the way to town. And, and at that time, you're just power walking because it's middle of the night and dark and damp. And, I get to town and son of a bitch, somebody comes that could have given me a ride if I would have walked slower. Or not as, but yeah, that was that half ton. It was fun while it lasted, but yeah, we tore the motor and transmission out of that one, and it should have saved the motor. The motor got rained on and wrecked, I think. Rebuild would have made that a fun motor, but the transmission I put in a pickup truck that didn't make 10 more hours, and that was finished. I don't know if we ever got our $700 out of that truck, but you never do.
Made for a good story.
It does, yeah. And if you don't tell these stories, that story would die with me, and now I'm suffered the rest of the world to having to hear it.
Now you'll get made fun of at the bar for it next week after this comes out. So it served its purpose twice.
Oh, yeah. You walked all the way to town. So here's a question I have for you there, Tanner. We don't deal with this at all. I mean, we never change our clocks. But you have daylight saving times, don't you? What's your opinion on that?
I think it should just stay in summer. I would rather it stayed light out longer. I'm all for leaving the spring ahead as a full-time thing.
Yeah, because
we legitimately, I was out ice fishing today, and I got a family member not that far away, and then another guy was fishing right by them. We had this conversation today, because that's coming up next weekend, on how nice these new pickups are, because you don't have to try to figure out how to change the clock twice a year, because they'll just do it for you. But yeah, no, I'm not a fan of it. That is one of those things only the government could find to be a good idea. Yes, we save the daylight.
Yeah, because I think it's us, and I think it's Arizona, and there might be one other state that doesn't change time.
Is there not a Canadian province that doesn't do it now? I thought
Saskatchewan.
Newfoundland or something decided they were going to do away with it. Maybe they were talking about it.
I always figured we should be on the half hour like Newfoundland, just a half hour off of Alberta and a half hour off of Manitoba at all times. If they didn't change, because what happens is you make such a big time zone. Half the year we're in a massive time zone with Alberta, and the other half of the year we're in a massive time zone with Winnipeg. And I never know when I'm calling any of them places, whether I'm in the right time zone or not. It just, if they just didn't change, I'd be so much happier.
Honestly, in the middle of summer, I don't know what day it is, what time it is, what month it is. I just woke up and I had things to do, and I'm doing them. That's pretty much how I am too.
We're the same way here. And it's funny, during the wintertime here, I can kind of try to stockpile up on some sleep, try to catch some 7-8 hour days. But man, during the busy season, I think all farmers are that end. We run at the high end of giving her nonstop during spring seeding for us. 5-6 weeks in a row, 4 hours a night. Give her everything you have. Just amazed that there isn't more accidents that happen. Because that's always a big fear when guys coming back late or getting up early,
Spring's never really worried me. I mean, it's a long push, and then you go right into spring, but you'll just throw somebody different in the sprayer and man the tender truck, so you can, get an 8-hour night of sleep and then, 12 hours of sleep in 2-hour increments all day long. But fall is what gets me, because you go from combining to, you've got a harrow, you've got fall tillage, you've got to wash everything up, put it away, do any maintenance or oil changes or any of that. So you basically run, at least for us, we run pretty much straight from the first or second week of August till sometime in November. Just no let up.
And that's what happened. I noticed with us too, we were short-staffed this fall. We had a guy move on. And, that was majorly noticeable, that we're short that one guy for getting stuff put away and didn't get stuff washed up, like you said. And, had a tractor end up spending more time outside than I wanted to. And then, of course, when we got to it this winter, the mice moved into it. So it's, oh my God. And that all can stem back to just a little bit short-handed. So... Again, pull the interior out of that tractor again and clean it all up again. It's just, and that's when a family farm pushes hard, you just push. And it takes a special breed of guy to come work with somebody that wants to push that hard. That's what we often find is, and I need to give my guys time off. They need to get away from me. I need to get away from them. But we were lucky with some guys. mean, when they run our machinery, they're running their machinery. They look after it like they're making the payments on it. It's their baby. If something happens to their truck or that tractor, I mean, they're just as heartbroken as we are.
Yep. Yeah, that's what you want, and that's getting harder and harder to find.
And I've come to the conclusion, if you don't come from Canada, or obviously the States too, you don't have that same. That's the experience we've had with the men coming from other countries over the years. They're really good at telling you what you want to hear, but once they get their residency, they got what they wanted to hear. They're out of here.
Yeah. You really got to be careful on some of that. And I've heard mixed stories. Different guys have had different experiences, but I think what you're saying happens fairly regularly.
No, it's happened to us 4 times. So I'll just spend a little extra money and hire a good homegrown Canadian boy, and then we're usually pretty fine then. And that's one thing, like your farm there, you're just you and your dad, or and your uncle, I guess. Any hired men or seasonal guys help you out?
We'd like to hire what we call winos. Basically, what you do is you go to the local bar and throw out a net, and whoever lands in it gets to run the grain cart.
I always thought running the grain cart is, especially for some farms, is one of the busiest jobs on the farm. And you have to be fairly smart to keep up the 2 or 3 combines and keeps truck loaded and going and not too overloaded. So,
it used to be my favorite job because it's the only job on the farm where you can take everything that they've beat into your head your entire life, all season long, and throw it out the window. You pretty much do whatever it takes to make sure the combines don't stop. And I always thought that was a good time until you're going across a field full bore and find a ditch that doesn't really agree with you, and you end up laying on the floorboards because you smacked your head into the steering wheel or something. But that's happened a few times. But
I think everybody that's ran a grain cart's had that experience.
yeah, you should all run a 2-track cat on a grain cart for the experience of how nimble and agile and effing rough a 2-track tractor is on a grain cart. They are awesome for getting up to a combine, close, away from it, pull up to a semi, great visibility, nice and short, and just so rough. You rattle them apart.
I can believe it.
Yeah, no thanks. No thanks.
The turning's amazing, and then you want to get away from a header. I mean, you're just away. I mean, we're articulated tractor for the first half a second. We don't want to pull away from a header if you're too close. You hinge the grain cart in towards it for just a hair, and I'm a big fan of all tractors, but the 2-cat's awesome in some spots. I just need an air ride cab kit on ours. I think would really fix that up, but I've never found one for a 7C Challenger. So if somebody knows where there's one made, let me know. I'll put it on.
While we're on the topic of grain carts, you see on social media how combine operators think they're so above the grain cart operator, always making fun of the grain cart operator. Everything's the grain cart operator's fault. On our farm, we try to do it where the grain cart operator, he's the field boss. He tells the combines where he wants them to go, the order he wants them in. He's the one that's got to try and keep everybody organized. So honestly, on our farm, being a grain cart operator isn't an easy job.
We're the exact same. The grain cart guy, I went to school for custom harvesting. The grain cart guy runs the field. He tells the combine which way is the combine, which way the overlap, where I'm going to dump you, when I'm going to dump you. And I did that to my uncle years ago. I got to the north end of the field where he was cutting. And he's like, well, I only got half a hopper. I don't feel like dumping yet. So, okay, I left. And I left for like half an hour. I went and dumped the other combine. I got out and I talked to the truck driver. He was sitting there at the corner of the field just spitting fire because I didn't show up when he wanted me to. And then I explained to him, I was here. I had room for you. I wasn't going to be back right away. That's why I wanted you to dump here. So, then he realized when I pull up, you dump. But I hadn't, and we weren't, there was no weather. So let him spit fire. He got out and probably had a smoke, walked around or whatever. So we didn't really lose any productivity, maybe 5 acres less in the day. But sometimes you have to teach that lesson.
And you did it with a smile on your face too, didn't you?
A little one. And my uncle's a phenomenal machinery operator. So I was just honored to have him come down and combine. But just that one time, not too often a young buck like me teaches an old guy like my uncle a lesson or two. But that one time I could teach my uncle a lesson. One thing I have noticed, it is stressful with the low commodity prices and our high input prices, high fuel prices, high fertilizer prices. You know what, folks? It's stressful out there. And unless you know that there's help. There is help. Saskatchewan up here, there is wonderful programs called Saskag Matters. It's 1-800-667-4442. There's somebody there that can listen to you. You don't need to give their name, your name. They're not going to know their name. It's somebody to listen to you, somebody to help you talk you through this stuff, somebody to let you know that you're not alone in this. We're all in this together. And Saskag Matters and the mental wellness for Saskatchewan farming and ranchers is a huge sector that we're unutilizing, and there's so many people that should be here today. If they would have made a couple of calls, would be here today. So that's my little shameless plug, because you know what, at the end of the day, we all love agriculture, we all love farming, we all love what we're doing, but we all have families and we all have to get home to them. So, don't feel bad about having to call that number. I was at the curling rink the other day and I was mentioning this Saskag Matters, and I had a guy actually I curled against him. He told me a story in 2003 when BSE kicked in. He said, I didn't have enough energy to get out of bed. I didn't know how I was going to make my payments. I didn't know what we're going to do with the cattle herd. He went, the herd went to worthless overnight with BSE. He said, I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't know what to do. I called that number. And he's a proud man, or not too proud, I guess, to tell that story right in the middle of the curling club. And he's like, you can tell whoever you want. I called that number a couple of times. I talked to a wonderful lady there, and she talked me through this tough time, because he said, I don't know where I would be unless I called that number. And that pretty well brought a tear to my eye, that know that people have used that number, that ability is there, but we're not too proud. I'm not too proud to call that number if I needed to. And I'm not too proud to say, if you're having a tough time, if you can't deal with that, if you don't know what to do, if you can't get up in the morning, it's free. Call the number. And if you qualify, you can get up to 6 free hours of one-on-one counseling with a psychologist. The big thing is not being too proud and having the ability to say, I don't know what to do. I'm having a hard time. And phone that number, 1-800-667-4442. It's free, it's easy, and it's there to help you. And that's the key. There is somebody there, because we don't need to have any more incidents.
Like everybody, let's end the stigma. If you need help, don't be afraid to get help. We're all in this together. We all know farming's tough. At the end of the day, nobody's going to judge you.
And I know up here we have the suicide crisis helpline. That's 988. And I believe, Tanner, you have the same thing down there too?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so, it's on all sides of the border. It's always the same, whether we're here or North Dakota or Texas or wherever you're listening to this. Know that you're not alone. If you're having trouble with this, you're not alone. And there's people there that can help us get through this, because, the only person you're going to hurt is everybody else if something bad goes wrong.
And definitely in ag, there's this stigma that if you are going through that, you can't say anything, because, it could affect ground you rent, it could affect land deals or your operations, so you have to keep it in. And, it can be too much. I know people that have been there.
Yeah, you've personally lost friends. I've known people that have been taken far too soon, and there's a coming out here. This is mental wellness for Saskatchewan farming and ranchers is sending out a magnet that has all the numbers, the family service numbers, counselors numbers, farm stress line, kids help phone, mobile crisis numbers. They're all on here. It's going to be a big magnet coming out here in Saskatchewan. Stick it on the fridge, stick it on the filing cabinet. Just put it someplace and know, and show your kids what these numbers are. There's right from the kids' help phone. Everything's on this magnet. There's one of them square code things you can scan with your phone.
QR code.
That's it. There's a QR code on it. I know, I talked to them. This is going to be coming out real soon. Let's just hope they get it out as quick as they can, because all this information on this magnet is critical. And it's so needed and so appreciated. Didn't mean to end the podcast with a tear in my eye, but I did. But I guess that just shows that this matters to me. And it matters to all of us. Tyler and I just do this podcast for the fun of talking about agriculture. And nothing gets me fired up more than talking about this, 1-800-667-4442 number. I can handle the crappy prices and stuff, but one thing I don't like is, when you hear when terrible tragedies happen that could be avoided.
And it's young farmers, it's older farmers, it's middle-aged farmers. This affects everybody.
Yes, it does. And it affects everybody in agriculture right from one end of this continent we're on to the other, is the best way to describe it, right from North Carolina to freaking Grand Prairie, Alberta. We're all in this together. This matters to me, and it matters to Tyler, and it matters to Tanner. It matters to all of us. That this is important, folks. I mean, just because we're big, tough farmers, we're not that big. We're not that tough. And we can't carry the whole weight of the world on our shoulders. There's help. But that's enough of that note. But thanks, folks, for listening. We were so honored to have our first out-of-country guest, to have Tanner Millang, the Tanner Talk on TikTok there. Excellent farmer from just touching the border. A friend of mine. Thank you, Tanner. I appreciate you coming on and playing with us the last half an hour, hour and a half. I mean, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And I guess, folks, we are the Bunny Hug Farmers. And if you found this, you're on Spotify. And hopefully pretty soon, folks, we'll be on some other platforms. And we're going to go from there. But for now, we're just on Spotify, the Bunny Hug Farmers. Thanks. Appreciate you all listening. Be safe out there.